it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 3 of my 2020 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be using MFT's set Present Time by Birdie Brown. So I've stamped out the images I'll be using with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink on some Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. So I'm using BG10 and BG11 for my snowmen. This is my favorite combo for snowmen just because I think it still helps them look white, but it gives them like a little frosty glow. So I used the BG11 to give them a shadow that was a little bit thicker on the back side of their bodies. And then I also added just a little bit on the front because the guy who is bent over looking in the stocking, his head would be casting a shadow on that lower part. And then the two that are holding the gifts and the bag over their heads, those objects would also be casting a shadow on them. So I put that there, and also just a tiny shadow underneath the scarves on the two on the left. And then I blended that out with the BG10. And then to soften that into the white, I just grabbed the colorless blender and went over the very edge of that BG10 just to get it to fade a little bit so there won't be any harsh lines. And that's all I do for snowmen. It's really quick and easy. For the coal, I used C5 and C7. I just added a little bit of the C7 first, colored it maybe halfway in, and then I finished with the C5, and I did the other two off screen. And then for the carrot nose, I used YR14 and YR18. It's just kind of a little bit of a duller orange, which I thought looked more like a carrot, especially in the winter time when they're not in season. For my reds, I'm going to use R24, R29, R39, and R59. And that is because the bag that I'm coloring in this first snowman's hands, it's a pretty big object. It's nearly as big as he is. So I just wanted to get a lot of dimension on there. So I used that R59 first, and I put that on the bottom edge. And then I'm going to start blending upward with the R39. And I'll bring that right above that first tail from the bow. And then I'm going to pull in the R29 and really go over the edge of that R39 again and just get it to soften up so that I have a nice blend into that bright, beautiful red. And then I'll do the same on the part that's gathered up at the top. And then I'm going to bring in R24. I'm not going to color in the whole rest of that white space. I wanted there to be a shadow coming from the top as well to help it look more rounded. So I'm only going to go most of the way and then leave a little sliver. And this time I'm starting with the R39. I don't want it to be quite as dark as the bottom edge because that one would be in more shadow most likely. But I just wanted a little bit of darkness there. So I used that, and then I pulled in that R29 to blend over that transition area into the R24 and use the R24 as well. I colored the other red objects off screen, but for those I just left off the R59 and started with the R39. Now moving on to my G combo, which was G02, G03, and G05. So I laid in a little bit of that G05 first on the snowman on the far left's scarf. And then I started to blend that out with the G03, but I found that the G05 and the G03 were too similar in tone. So I took away the G05 and added in the G00 and made that my highlight shade. But sometimes with the really light colors like that G00, it's got so much colorless blender in it that it actually pushes the other colors away from it. And so in order to get a nice blend, you do have to go over things with a second layer and just creep back into that highlight space and just, make that blend a little bit more seamless. So I colored in the rest of my green objects, but for the tree, I wanted that to be a bit darker. So I took away the G00 and added in the G07, and I'm going to start with that darkest shade up at the top. So I'll do it from the very tip of the tree, and then also on the second layer underneath, the boughs of the first layer. So I blended that out with the G03, and then I'm going to come in with the G02 and finish that off. And again, I did a second layer on the tree to just help with that blend and smooth things out. For my yellows, I'm using Y13, Y15, and Y26. I wanted to have kind of a golden shade, but I wanted it to be like a bright gold. And that's a little bit of a tricky thing to accomplish with Copics, at least with the Copics that I own. And I've heard other Copic colorists mention that as well, but I found that this combo here does a decent job. So I did that for the bow on the gift bag, and then I'm also going to color the middle snowman's scarf with this combo. And I find that Y26, it's pretty dull on its own. But the Y15 and the Y13 just help to brighten it up and give it a little bit more life, I feel like. So I just brought in that Y26 from the outside edges of his scarf and then a little bit where it's tucked under. And then I blended that out with the Y15 and the Y13. And I did a second layer on that as well. For the tree stump, I did E25, E27, and E29, and I put a little shadow right up under the green and then a little bit down the right-hand side and blended toward the bottom left. And then I'm bringing C0 and C1 for any objects that I want to look white. So I'm going to do the gift that's in the middle snowman's hand. I used that C1 down at the bottom and then blended out with the C0, and I also did the lid, and I'm going to color the other stripes on that stocking with this combo as well and just let that fade into the white. For the inside of the first snowman's mouth, I'm using RV10, RV11, and RV13. And just like the tree trunk, I'm blending from the right to the left, except in the reverse, I did it bottom to top instead of top to bottom. And then I used the RV10 to add some rosy cheeks to each of these snowmen and make them look extra cheerful and happy. And then I'm going to grab my black Sakura Jelly Roll pen and I'm going to scribble it off to the side to get it started. And then I'm going to go over each of the snowmen's eyes just to help them bring them back to life. This makes them like nice and glossy and black, and I just really love the effect. And then I will trim all of these images out with their coordinating dies. The pattern papers that I'm using today are from the Not a Creature Was Stirring paper collection by Photoplay. So I'm going to flip through and choose a few different patterns. I really love this plaid, and I thought the red and white polka dot went so well with that. And I definitely wanted to use the snowflake print, and then I liked this like candy cane stripe that looks like it's got maybe some mint as well in it. I just thought it was really pretty. So these are the 4 that I selected. The first 3 I'm going to use to layer on my card base, and then the snowflake print I'm going to use as the background of my focal panel. So I've trimmed all of those down. I used the A2 Stitch Rectangle Stacks Set 2 from MFT to cut down the plaid print. And then I used just my paper trimmer to cut down the red polka dot print, and then the Lawn Fawn Stitch Party Banner die to cut down the bottom of the stripe print. And then I used another A2 Stitch Rectangle Stacks Set 2 for the focal panel, and the Lawn Fawn Stitch Hillside Borders for the snowdrift. And I'm going to set all of those aside for right now and pop the Snowdrift in my MISTI so that I can stamp my sentiment on that. And I'm using Lawn Fawn's Lobster ink to stamp Yay It's Present Time, which I think is super fun. So I stamped that out twice so that I got a nice bold impression. And then I'm going to pop my card base in my MISTI. I'm using Lawn Fawn's Mermaid cardstock and stamping in Peacock ink. And I'm using another one of the snowman and 2 snowflakes and the sentiment that says, I hope your holidays are wrapped in love, which I think is just so sweet. So I stamped that down a couple of times to get a good impression. I felt like the letters weren't quite so bold, so I did those a 3rd time. And then I can start to assemble my focal panel. So I've trimmed out a piece of cheap white cardstock to layer underneath the pattern paper just to give that focal panel a little bit more stability so that I can pop it up later with some foam tape. And then I'm going to add the Snowdrift right over top at the bottom edge. Just making sure that all 3 of those bottom edges are aligned. And now I can add in my snowman. I'm going to start with this guy since he's the biggest. And I'm going to put him over on the right hand side. And then the guy that's facing to the right, I'm going to put him on the left. And then the snowman that is looking down inside the stocking, he's going to go right in the center. And then I've got that tree that I want to add, and I'm going to just lift him up carefully and kind of tuck it behind. And then I decided that I wanted it shifted a little bit more to the left, so I also picked up the snowman on the left and kind of tucked it behind his arm. And I love that that die cuts those arms out, so you get that peek at the background right through. So that is going to finish up my focal panel. So I'll move on to my card base, and I'm going to start by layering this plaid print to my card base. It's going to give me just a sliver of that mermaid cardstock showing through on the outside edges, which I think ties in really beautifully with that lighter greenish blue in that plaid pattern. And then I'm going to take the red and white polka dot and add that towards the bottom of the scene, or of the card I should say. And then I've got this little flag fishtail banner that I'm going to shift towards the left and have that hanging down. And I love using liquid glue for that because it just gives me a little bit of time to adjust as needed. I've popped my focal panel up on some foam tape, and I'm going to pop that down in the center of the card. See there, you can see I just wanted to shift those pattern papers down slightly, and that way you could see a little bit more of that red polka dot print showing through at the bottom. So I'm going to line that up in the middle and press that down into place. And then as a final embellishment, I decided to add some sparkle. So I'm actually going to add sparkle in 2 ways. I'm going to use my Spectrum Noir clear glitter overlay pen to add some sparkle to the snowman just by swiping that over on the shadowed edge and just adding a really bit of glitter. This one is more subtle. You don't really see it so much head on, but you will see it when you tip it into the light. And I did that on the exposed top of the snowdrift as well. And then I'm going to bring in some Stardust Stickles, and I'm going to add that to a few more places. I'm going to put some on the snowman's scarves and also to the bow on the gift. I'm going to add some to the tree. I'm going to just kind of swipe that down from the top edge in like little streaks. I felt like that looked nice. And then I'll add a little bit to the edge of the stocking and also to the far snowman's scarf and the bow and the gift bag. So I did go a little crazy with that, but I feel like Christmas is the time for extra sparkle. So I almost left it off the gift bag, but after taking a second look, I just decided to put it there as well. Sometimes I just can't stop myself. So I'll pick that up and tip it into the light so you can see all of that sparkle. and I'll give you another peek at the inside. And that is going to complete my card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed day 3 of my 2020 holiday card series. If you did, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any videos in this series. I'm posting new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right now, so there's lots of content on my channel. And if you're interested in any of the products that I use, make sure to check the description bar down below for links. If you'd like to keep watching, here's day 3 of the previous 2 years of holiday card series, and I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.